Chapter 11. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Shinichi, who activated the blood demon art and blood-blasting state, was extremely fast. Shinichi's attack could not even touch the corner of his clothes, but this behavior of avoiding the attack in a panic made Shinichi feel extremely frustrated. The demon blood in his body was boiling, and the invisible anger was also accumulating. The reason why he could endure it until now was entirely because he sensed the deep hatred for evil demons emanating from Shinichi. Perhaps because they were full of hatred for evil demons, Shinichi did not really want to attack Shinichi, but people have a limit to their tolerance, let alone demons. The demon slayer Longji, who was kicked away by Shinichi in anger just now, is still lying beside the tree and can't stand up. Finally, at a certain moment, ping. The black claws and the blue sun will sword collided with each other countless times, flashing countless sparks. Puff. The sharp Nichiren sword pierced Shinichi's palm, and hot blood continued to flow out of the wound, making a sizzling sound on the Nichiren sword. But taking advantage of this opportunity, Shinichi firmly grasped the Nichiren sword that Shinue had stabbed. Enduring the severe pain in his palm and the chilling breath from the Nichiren sword, Shinichi's expression was a little ferocious. He opened his mouth and roared at Shinue, "Stop it!" Looking at the sharp fangs in Shinichi's mouth, Shinue's forehead also had veins bulging, and he also used all his strength. Dream on! Sizzling. As the man and the ghost were in a stalemate, Shinichi could feel that his hot blood was slowly cooling down, and the power of the violent blood was gradually fading, but he had no way to get rid of the entanglement of the stubborn demon slayer in front of him. What should he do? Wait. Where is Enji? Why didn't I hear Enji's voice from just now? Shinue was also gritting his teeth and holding on. He could also feel that the strength of the evil ghost in front of him was gradually weakening, and the hot breath emanating from his body was slowly weakening. Hold on a little longer. Hold on a little longer. Soon it will be done. Swish. 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 At this moment, something strange happened. In the lush forest, several black shadows rushed out of the air, so fast that they even made a whistling sound in the air. At the same time, Shinichi's brain also received a crazy warning from Enji. Asshole. Let go. Danger. Shinichi yelled at Shinue subconsciously, but Shinue didn't move at all. Don't try to play tricks. Go to hell. Puff. Before he finished speaking, Shinue's body trembled suddenly, and the sound of a sharp blade entering the flesh suddenly sounded. His hand holding the sun will sword slowly lost strength, and the scene in front of him began to blur. With a clang, his sun will sword fell to the ground, disappearing, passing away. A ray of green light flashed in Shinichi's eyes. He seemed to see the green vitality on Shinue's body fading away quickly. Lowering his head, he saw a hemp rope dripping with blood emerging from Shinue's chest. Yes, hemp rope. A hemp rope pierced through Shinue's chest. On that hemp rope, Shinichi felt an extremely terrifying, extremely strong breath of ghosts. Powerful. Powerful. Very, very powerful. Stronger than the evil ghosts Shinichi had encountered so far. Compared with the evil ghost controlling this hemp rope, the strongest evil ghost Karasuma that Shinichi had encountered before might not even be as good as a finger of this ghost. Everything happened in a flash. When Shinichi reacted, got rid of the stalemate, and rushed behind Shinue to cut the hemp rope, it was too late. Shinue's body was suddenly pulled away from Shinichi by the hemp rope like a rag bag. The two looked at each other for the last time. In the eyes of the dying Shinue, there was still endless hatred. He hated Shinichi until his death, or hated the demons. So fast. That it was not just one hemp rope that appeared out of thin air, but 4 or 5. In addition to Shinue, the injured demon slayer Ryuchi was also tied up by hemp ropes, and his partner Enji was covered in blood and flesh, lying on the ground and making weak cries. But the demon blood in Enji's body was constantly repairing his injuries. Yuji. Then, without waiting for Shinichi to react, the hemp ropes quickly retracted like snakes in the air as if they had life, and Shinichi, who was standing in place, seemed to be directly ignored. Stop right there. Shinichi was shocked and angry, and he stomped on the ground to chase after him. Unfortunately, it was raining cats and dogs. His heart suddenly trembled, and his muscles were numb as if struck by lightning. The sudden fatigue swept over his body in an instant. Damn it, it's time to bleed. No. We must not let that guy go. Those two demon slayers will definitely be in danger. Forcibly suppressing the fatigue in his body, Shinichi ran to chase after him, but the next second his body paused for a while, and his eyes looked at the azure sun blade on the ground. Kawachi, do you smell it? This fragrance a bit like barley tea. The Hatamoto behind Kawachi sniffed the air suspiciously. Since they were getting closer and closer to the Shirai ruins, the faint aroma of barley tea in the air became stronger and stronger. Kawachi held the handle of the Nichiren sword with one hand, and looked around vigilantly. Not to mention the tea fragrance in the air, the abnormally quiet environment was enough to make Kawachi palpitate. It was at this time that footsteps sounded behind Kawachi, and Kawachi's hand holding the handle of the sword immediately tightened. Fortunately, there were only 2 team members who came from the south after receiving the news from the crow, and the 4 demon slayers met here. Senior Kawachi, are we not late? Kawachi shook his head. After a while, another demon slayer team member came over anxiously. Senior Kawachi, Mr. Moriki said he had something important to do, so he asked me to meet up first, and he will be there soon. Sure enough, Mr. Moriki was on something, and Hanoi had expected it. However, he also believed that Mr. Moriki was very skilled, so he was not very worried about him. But what worried Hanoi was that there was no news about the other 2 team members, Longji and Jinue, so Hanoi gestured to ask the 2 team members near Jinue if they had any news about them. Longji and Jinue. We didn't meet them on the road. As soon as we received the news from the crow, we rushed here without stopping. A member of the Demon Slayer team shook his head to indicate that he had not encountered the 2, Kawachi frowned. Logically speaking, the group of Shinue and his team was the closest to him, and the crow must have notified Shinue and his team first. But now that everyone else has arrived here, there is still no news about Shinue and his team. Could it be that something unexpected happened? Suddenly, a strong smell of blood suddenly penetrated into Hanoi's nose. Everyone present smelled the sudden smell of blood, and their faces changed drastically. Kawachi waved his hand, signaling everyone to follow, and then he took the lead and ran in the direction where the smell of blood came from. At the same time, the sound of the crow flapping its wings was heard in the sky, southwest direction. Southwest direction. Shinue encountered a ghost. Shinue encountered a ghost. That's Shinue's crow. Beside the ancient Beijing ruins, on a wide open space, in the ground, extremely thin and long hemp ropes stood upright, like steel bars, and on these dozens of hemp ropes, dark red viscous liquid kept dripping along the hemp ropes. It was blood. Human blood. Looking up along the hemp ropes, I'm afraid even the bravest humans would be scared. I saw dozens of humans strung together like candied haws on the hemp ropes. The hemp ropes penetrated their bodies from bottom to top. Most of the humans had lost their vitality, and a few of them were still twitching occasionally. After a few hits, their blood stained the land below. Most of these people were wearing long or short shirts made of coarse cloth, and there were some weapons such as axes and hunting knives scattered under their feet. They seemed to be the young people from Beijing village who rashly broke into Beijing Mountain Creek. Suddenly, the seemingly rotten water-drawing tool beside the ancient Beijing began to turn. As if in response, a hemp rope suddenly began to twist violently and stretched rapidly. A young man who was still alive and pierced on the hemp rope was like a doll. Snap! Snap! Ah! The young man screamed miserably. His body was broken and torn apart like a twist under the violent twist of the hemp rope. Blood splashed down the hemp rope like a waterfall. A lot of blood suddenly rushed to a wooden table that suddenly appeared beside the white well. On the wooden table, a dark red teapot glowed with a strange light. A hemp rope was stretched into the pot, and blood flowed into the teapot along the hemp rope. Right in front of the wooden table, a burly figure sat quietly, wearing a dark gray jacket, loose black hair, a black beard on the chin, black lines on his face, and on the golden scara. What was even more strange was that its left eye seemed to be engraved with some words. Looking closely, it was the word Xia. Ha! Are you disturbing me at this time? You ruined this pot of good tea. Damn it! Crack! A teacup in his hand was instantly crushed into powder. Chapter 12. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Are Shinue and the others in danger? Hanoi was a little anxious. He was worried about the safety of his two companions, but the increasingly strong smell of blood made Hanoi unable to get away. There must be a very powerful evil ghost in the direction where the blood smell came from. The blood smell was so strong and fresh. The evil ghost must be slaughtering humans. It must be stopped. The dense bushes in front blocked the way of several people. Hanoi did not hesitate and directly pulled out the Sunwool sword. He stepped on the ground with one foot and held the handle horizontally. He silently said in his heart, wind breathing, 3 types Siren wind tree, that the whistling whirlwind wrapped in the sword light instantly shattered the bushes blocking the road, and the scene behind the bushes was completely reflected in everyone's eyes. That is. What? Even though they were mentally prepared, when the hell-like scene appeared in front of them, several members of the Demon Slayer team couldn't help but take a breath. I saw dozens of straight hemp ropes with blood gourd like humans piercing through them. The ground under my feet was completely stained with scarlet blood. Beside the ancient white well, there were several corpses that were no longer recognizable as human beings and were twisted into a twist. What the Demon Slayers were most concerned about was probably the burly figure sitting by the white well with his back to them. That kind of aura was definitely an evil ghost. Swish, swish, swish. All the members drew out their Nichiren swords in unison, their muscles tensed, and pointed at the sitting evil ghost with high alert. And the evil ghost also turned his head very cooperatively and looked at the ghost hunters who came for him. There are words. There are words in the eyes of this ghost. Kawachi's eyes widened instantly, and his right hand holding the knife was so strong that it turned white. What did he see? There were words in the right eye of the evil ghost. What does this mean? The ghost in front of him is one of the 12 demon moons. The 12 demon moons are the 12 strongest demons under the command of the legendary demon King Muzan. Each of them is extremely powerful, and the number of humans they have eaten is countless. They are divided into upper and lower strings. In the hundreds of years since the establishment of the Demon Slayer Corps, the strongest swordsmen are called pillars. Over the past 100 years, countless powerful pillar-level swordsmen have appeared, but no pillar has ever been able to kill any upper string demon. The number of lower string demons that have been killed is also extremely rare, and how many pillars have sacrificed in the past 100 years? It's a big trouble. The right eye of that demon is engraved with Xia, which is obviously a lower string demon moon, and it is the 4th lower string demon. This kind of demon, I'm afraid only swordsmen of level A, B, and C can barely deal with it, but the strongest swordsmen here are only 2 level E swordsmen, myself and the Hatamoto. Kawachi's hand holding the knife can't help but sweat. Demon Slayer Corps. I haven't seen them for more than 10 years. It seems that I have been careless recently. I actually exposed my whereabouts in Shirai Mountain. It's not easy to find a suitable environment for brewing tea like here. It's really a pity and infuriating. In this case, the last pot of good tea will be brewed with your blood. The bearded evil ghost muttered to himself. Lower string demon. You are a lower string demon. A nervous voice sounded from behind Kawachi. The demon slayer Hatamoto asked bravely while holding the handle of the Nichiren sword with trembling hands. Hearing this, the evil ghost smiled strangely, revealing his sharp fangs. The one who is about to kill you is the lower string 4, Winder. Boom. As soon as Winder finished speaking, several hemp ropes suddenly sprang out from the bushes behind him. On the hemp ropes, 2 swordsmen wearing the uniforms of the Demon Slayer Corps were tied, and one of them had already lost vital signs. Makoto. Ryuichi. The Demon Slayer's eyes widened. They recognized their other 2 companions at a glance. The hemp rope stained with the blood of the Demon Slayers floated to the mouth of the windlass. It stretched out its tongue and licked it. Well, you are worthy of being a demon hunter. The blood after training is much more delicious than those woodcutters and farmers. Windlass said with satisfaction. Damn it. Such a scene obviously angered the other demon slayers. Kawachi knew very well that they were definitely not the opponents of this lower string demon. The only thing they could do now was to delay this lower string demon as much as possible and survive as much as possible until the support of the demon slayers arrived. Just now, his left hand quietly behind his back had sent a signal to the crow in the sky, urgently requesting support. Coincidentally, Kawachi clearly remembered that before they came to Shirayama to perform the mission, they met the Flame Pillar on the road. The Flame Pillar seemed to be performing a mission nearby. What does this mean? As long as they are fast and hold on long enough, maybe they can hold on until the crow brings support from the Flame Pillar. Thinking of this, Hanoi's heart instantly became firm, and there was a hint of determination and fearlessness in his eyes when he looked at the wheel. It's getting closer, very close. That powerful the evil spirit was getting closer and closer. Yuan Air, who had recovered from his injuries, ran quickly in pursuit of the breath left on the hemp rope. Shinichi followed closely behind Yuan Air, carrying a rag-wrapped Nichiren sword on his back. With one claw, he tore through the lush vines blocking the road, and Shinichi's vision suddenly became wider, but suddenly, Shinichi's pupils shrank suddenly, and the whole person stopped immediately. Following his gaze, he saw a figure lying on the ground not far in front of him, or a corpse, blood mixed with countless broken internal organs spilled on the ground. The whole person was intact except for the head, and the body was completely torn. The cause of death was very similar to the corpse Shinichi had seen before. The blood at the corner of the mouth had begun to dry, and his eyes were still filled with fear and confusion before death. The smell of blood was still strong at the tip of his nose. This person might have been brutally killed just 10 minutes ago. Shinichi realized the severity of the situation in an instant, but before he could think about it, Enji suddenly howled in one direction. The fierce fighting sound not far away immediately attracted his attention. He turned his head and took a last look at the miserable corpse. A ray of green light flashed in Shinichi's eyes, and then he ran towards the sound of the battle. Strong. Too strong. We are not its opponents at all. A member of the Demon Slayer team shouted desperately. He tried his best to barely split the hemp rope that attacked him. At the moment when the Sunwell sword and the hemp rope came into contact, he felt that his Sunwell sword was like splitting a diamond, and the tiger's mouth was even cracked. But there were more than a dozen hemp ropes like this around the lower demon. These hemp ropes seemed to have life, attacking the Demon Slayer team members from all directions. What was even more terrifying was that the demon named Windlass was watching the show the whole time, without moving his body at all. He even had the mood to fiddle with the tea set in front of him. In just 2 minutes, Windlass brutally killed 2 of the 5 members of the Demon Slayer Corps. Only Kawachi and Hatamoto, who were both E-class swordsmen, could barely hold on. The hemp rope erected high behind Windlass had strung 2 broken members of the Demon Slayer Corps like trophies. In addition to Kawachi and Hatamoto, there was also a Sin-class swordsman, Yashihira, wielding the Sunwell sword. But to him, everything around him was like hell. Not to mention the terrifying hemp rope, the name of the lower string demon alone was enough to scare him. He had only been in the Demon Slayer Corps for a year, and he didn't have the courage to face the 12 demon moons. The miserable bodies of his companions on the hemp rope constantly stimulated Yashihira's nerves. Ping! The hemp rope whipped his Nichiren sword fiercely, and the terrifying force made Jipping unable to hold his Nichiren sword anymore. The Nichiren sword was whipped away in an instant. This desperate scene became the last straw that broke the camel's back. Jipping's eyes were full of fear, and he turned around and ran subconsciously. I can't beat it. It's impossible to beat it. I don't want to die. No, but no matter how fast Jipping was, he couldn't be faster than the hemp rope of the Windlass. Puff! It was as easy as piercing tofu, and the hemp rope instantly pierced Jipping's chest. Jipping! Damn it! Water breathing, type 2 water wheel. Seeing another companion die tragically, Hatamoto's body quickly spun, and the Nichiren sword he held tightly in his hand was like a surge of water, and a swift blow immediately split a hemp rope that wanted to sneak attack. But what made the Hatamoto despair was that after splitting one hemp rope, 3 or even 4 more hemp ropes were added. There were more and more hemp ropes besieging him and Kawachi, and their physical strength was rapidly fading. The sun-will sword collided with dozens of hemp ropes, splashing countless sparks. Kawachi's forehead was full of fine beads of sweat. The hand holding the sun-will sword was extremely numb. The desperate use of wind breathing had already brought his body and internal organs to the brink of collapse. Every time he breathed, his trachea seemed to be cut by a knife. The gap between ordinary swordsmen and the 12 demon moons was too big. Kawachi finally understood why the demon slayers could become pillars directly after killing one of the 12 demon moons. Watching the 2 demon slayers struggling desperately, the windlass showed a cruel smile. Beside him, on the windlass of the water-drawing tool beside the white well, a pair of wooden gears were creaking and rotating. The blood-soaked land behind him was also slowly creeping, and a swift hemp rope sprang out from time to time. Blood demon art, strangle the magic rope. Since the 2 little bugs from the Demon Slayer Corps are interested in splitting the hemp rope, let them split it for fun, just as a show to entertain them while making tea. Anyway, for it, wanting to kill these little bugs is just a thought. Thinking of this, the windlass snapped his fingers, and a hemp rope floated from behind. A demon slayer with his head down was tied up tightly. It was Ryuichi who was captured with Mayuko. He had already woken up, but after waking up, he had to face the desperate scene in front of him. He was caught by a lower-rank demon. Chapter 13. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Winder raised a finger, and the black nails immediately extended. Swish! The sharp nails cut open Takashi's throat in an instant, and scarlet blood gushed out immediately. The body twitched in vain for a few times, and Takashi lost his breath of life. Fresh and hot blood flowed into the teapot along the hemp rope. After a moment, a strange aroma of barley tea filled the teapot. Winder closed his eyes and drank a cup of blood intoxicatedly, then showed a satisfied smile. Under the moonlight, the fangs stained with blood looked particularly creepy. As expected of the Demon Slayer Corps, the blood quality is indeed excellent. Just a few small fish are so delicious. I don't know how sweet the blood of those pillars will be. Winder licked his fangs, and his golden pupils were full of bloodthirsty murderous intent. Okay, let's not waste time. Little Shrimp has had enough fun and has had his tea. It's time to eat. The windlass stood up, and the wooden gear beside him also floated up. Looking at Kawachi and Hatamoto who were still fighting desperately, he clasped his hands together and clapped them fiercely, and shouted, "Blood demon art, strangle the rope snake." Instantly, the hemp ropes that had been chaotically besieging Kawachi and the others paused for a second. Then, dozens of hemp ropes gathered together in an instant, and the fibers twisted and gathered. A hemp rope of more than 10 centimeters appeared, as if it had really turned into a big snake, whistling and whipping Kawachi and the other 2, as fast as lightning. Boom! Countless cracks were drawn out of the earth in an instant. Kawachi and Hatamoto barely avoided it, but such an attack was just an appetizer. The windlass still clasped his hands together, smiling cruelly, and the wooden gears around him spun rapidly. The next second, the earth trembled. Boom! A rope snake suddenly jumped out from behind Hatamoto. Kawachi's eyes were red with anger. He wanted to warn Hatamoto loudly, but he couldn't make a sound. He could only watch Hatamoto caught off guard and was instantly entangled by the rope snake. Crack! Blood flew, and Hatamoto's body was instantly twisted and torn apart. Wind breathing 8th form, first fierce wind slash. Blood gushed out of Kawachi's mouth and nose. With his body about to collapse, Kawachi tried his best to send a final blow to the windlass. His body was like a gust of wind, and he dodged the 2 rope snakes in an instant. He raised his sun-will sword and rushed straight to the windlass neck. Naive. Facing Kawachi's desperate attack, the windlass just laughed sarcastically, without any intention of dodging. Boom! The earth trembled, and another rope snake broke out of the ground in front of Kawachi and suddenly pulled towards Kawachi. At the same time, 2 rope snakes behind Kawachi rushed towards him. Crack! The Nichiren sword, with its last bit of strength, finally cut into half of a rope snake and lost all its power. Kowachi sighed inwardly and closed his eyes unwillingly. Is this the best he can do? In front of the powerful lower string demons, can the demon slayers only hold on for just a dozen minutes? Can the flame pillar still come? I'm afraid it's too late. What a pity. If he could be stronger, he could delay a little longer until the flame pillar arrives. Mom, Dad, brother. Forest breathing, one type iron birch slash, crack. Just as Kowachi closed his eyes and prepared to face death, an old but powerful voice suddenly sounded in his ears, followed by a series of shattering sounds, plop. Kowachi fell to the ground, opened his eyes in surprise, supported by the Nichiren sword, raised his head with difficulty, and saw a not-so-tall figure standing in front of him. The old green Haori was gently blown by the breeze, the green blade of the Nichiren sword in his hand was shining, and there were countless hemp rope fragments under his feet. Even though he was already full of white hair, the eyes of Mr. Morimo were particularly firm. What's going on? Where did this old man come from? Lulu was furious, and the veins on his forehead were bulging. The old man in front of him who looked like he had half a foot in the coffin just broke his rope snake with one blow. Kowachi's chest rose and fell violently, and blood kept pouring out of his mouth. He was very excited. He wanted to remind Mr. Morimo not to sacrifice in vain. This lower-rank ghost was too strong. Everyone couldn't die here. At least one person had to go back and tell everyone the situation here and tell everyone the specific information about this lower-rank ghost. Lulu stared at Old Man Senmu fiercely, his fangs bared. Old man, it's amazing that you can hold a knife at your age, but I don't want the old and sticky blood in your body. Go away. I'll spare your life. It can be seen that Lulu really dislikes the Old Man Senmu. Although the Old Man Senmu broke one of his rope snakes with one move, Lulu still didn't take the Old Man Senmu seriously. Spare me life. It's a very familiar sentence, but it's true, after all, it's the 12 demon months, if who wouldn't be afraid of this powerful ghost? When he was young, Mitsuyo Moriki would choose to run away when he saw you for the first time, because he was a complete coward and a pitiful person, a selfish coward who didn't care about his companions. Old Man Moriki slowly raised the green Nichiren sword, his face full of loneliness, but looking at the Nichiren sword in his hand, the old man's expression became firm again. Mitsuyo Moriki has been running away all his life. He has been sharpening the sword for more than 50 years, but he can't erase the cowardice engraved on the blade. But today, Mitsuyo Moriki, who is already an old man, doesn't want to run away. I just want to kill another ghost. Looking for death. If you want to die, then I'll fulfill your wish. Lulu didn't want to listen to the old man's chattering in front of him, and clapped his hands, blood demon art strangling rope snake. Swish. Swish. 2 rope snakes that had been accumulating power for a long time instantly pounced on Grandpa Morimo. Kowachi behind him wanted to help, but now he didn't even have the strength to move a finger. Faced with the attacking rope snakes, Grandpa Morimo was not panicked at all. He held the sun-will sword upright in front of him and took a deep breath. A trace of redness appeared on his somewhat shriveled face. An invisible force instantly flowed through his old body, and those dry and old muscles and blood vessels were instantly awakened. Breath of the forest, one form iron birch slash. With a light shout, the sun-will sword that was originally standing in front of Mr. Senmu instantly slashed horizontally, and the green light was bright. It seemed a simple horizontal slash, but if you stand in front of this horizontal slash, you will instantly feel that the horizontal slash seemed to be a row of golden iron birch that covered the sky and the sun, rushing towards you in an overwhelming manner. Bang! The surging rope snake hit the indestructible iron birch, countless air waves burst out, and the earth trembled for this. The windlass widened his golden eyes in disbelief. This old man. He actually blocked its attack. Old thing. I want to see what you will do next. Windlass sneered, and his hands clasped together to the sides, his hands formed into claws, blood demon art scattering meteor hammer. Pop! The two rope snakes exploded instantly, dispersing into dozens of thinner hemp ropes. These hemp ropes drilled into the ground instantly, and when they came out of the ground again, each hemp rope was wrapped with a bucket-shaped hammer head the size of a watermelon. The windlass hooked his finger lightly, and suddenly dozens of meteor hammers hit Grandpa Senmu all over the sky, boom. Every blow of the meteor hammer can smash a big hole on the ground. If it hits a person's body, the consequences are unimaginable. Grandpa Senmu was not stupid enough to really use the Sunwool sword to catch this thing. Fortunately, after the hemp rope turned into a meteor hammer, although the power was greater, the speed was correspondingly slower. Grandpa Senmu easily quickly dodged more than a dozen hammers. While dodging the meteor hammer, Mr. Morimo was also constantly closing the distance with the windlass. As long as he could get close, there would be hope of beheading the evil ghost. He rolled sideways again and took the opportunity to slide to the left front of the windlass still stood there without moving. It was unknown whether it was too confident or too stupid. In any case, this was an opportunity for Mr. Morimo. The emerald green Sunwool sword instantly slashed horizontally and rushed straight to the windlass neck, but the windlass laughed sarcastically. Before Mr. Morimo's Sunwool sword approached its neck, the windlass suddenly clapped its hands, and the wooden gear floating next to it turned wildly, and even sparks were faintly emitted, blood demon art strangling the magic rope. Swish! 6 thin hemp ropes instantly emerged from under the ground, slashing towards Old Man Senmu, and completely blocking the old man's retreat from 6 directions. Old Man Senmu's dry hands holding the Sunwool sword tightened in an instant, and he suddenly stepped on the ground, and the hot breath that was almost visible to the naked eye came out of the corners of his mouth. Breath of the Forest, Form 4, Dandelion Dance. Before the words fell, a layer of green light flashed across the old man's body, and then, a scene that surprised Lulu happened. I saw that Old Man Senmu's body suddenly jumped up lightly. Whenever the hemp rope was about to be pulled over, his body dodged as lightly as a dandelion being blown away, at an extremely fast speed, leaving a trail of afterimages in the air, as if he was really dancing. Nanny! At the moment when the windlass was surprised, a flash of knife light passed by, and the windlass could no longer stand still calmly. It rolled sideways in a panic without caring about its image, and thus avoided the dangerous knife. Chapter 14. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A few drops of cold sweat oozed out of the black-lined face of the windlass. It had never expected that the dry old man in front of it would have such strange and fierce moves, and even almost made it flip over. Logically speaking, an old man of this age should never have such strength. Humans are different from ghosts. The lifespan of ghosts is almost endless. Their bodies will not age. They can continuously enhance their strength over a long period of time, but humans cannot. Humans' short life is destined to be incomparable to ghosts. Although the swordsmen of the Demon Slayer Corps who practiced breathing techniques are very strong, as the stronger swordsmen grow older, they will age, their muscles will degenerate, and their breathing will fail. Ghosts will become stronger and stronger, while those human swordsmen, including those rumored to be the strongest pillar-level swordsmen, will only become weaker and weaker after reaching their peak. But the wind wheel felt a completely different aura from the old man in front of him. In the eyes of the wind wheel, the aura around the old man Moriki was getting stronger and stronger. His dry muscles were getting fuller and fuller, and his breathing was getting stronger and stronger. He was like a shriveled sponge, constantly absorbing water and growing stronger. No, there is something wrong with this old man. Is it his breathing method? The forest breathing? I have never heard of it. Is it a new method of the Demon Slayer Corps? The wind will looked fierce and looked at the old man opposite carefully. As a demon who has lived for nearly 100 years, the wind will has witnessed the replacement of the lower moon demon moon many times. Unlike the upper moon demon moon that has remained unchanged for almost 100 years, the competition between the lower moon demon moons is particularly fierce. 2 or even 3 bloody battles for replacement may occur in just a few years. In addition, there are also many lower moon demon moons who died in the hands of the Demon Slayer Corps. It can be said that becoming a lower moon demon moon and keeping the position of a lower moon demon moon. From the time he became a lower moon to today's lower moon, the wind will has always been cautious enough. It is different from other demons who crave power and killing. It has ambition, but it cherishes its life more. The wind will knows that if it wants to become stronger, it must eat more people, gain more favor from the adult, and get more blood, but all this must be based on its own survival, so all along, the wind will has been deliberately hiding its tracks, and will not kill wantonly to attract the attention of the Demon Slayer Corps. Quietly and steadily becoming stronger is its purpose. From the team sent by the Demon Slayer Corps to hunt ghosts this time, it can be found that the wind will has indeed done this. No one expected that the ghost on Shirai Mountain would be a lower moon demon. Thinking of this, the windless couldn't help but think of another ghost, a lower-ranked ghost below it. That ghost didn't seem to be keen on wanton killing and status, but indulged in playing house, and even wasted the blood given by the adult. But the strange thing was that the adult actually tolerated its behavior, which was incredible. Although it was unclear why the adult was so fond of it, the windless didn't dare to imitate this behavior. The moves of Mr. Morimo became more fierce, and the windless couldn't help but have a little retreat. It's not that it can't beat Mr. Morimo, it just doesn't want to waste energy on this shriveled old man. Suddenly, something happened on the battlefield, and Mr. Morimo's originally swift attack suddenly stopped for a moment, and it was at this moment that the windless seized the opportunity. The whistling meteor hammer smashed straight towards Mr. Senmu's head. At the critical moment when the meteor hammer was only 0.01 centimeters away from Mr. Senmu's forehead, Mr. Senmu raised the Sun Will sword in time to block the fatal blow, but the terrible impact of the meteor hammer still knocked Mr. Senmu back and crashed into a big tree with a bang. Mr. Senmu also spit out a large mouthful of blood, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, supported the Sun Will sword, and barely stood up, looking at his arm holding the sword. Under the clothes, the bulging muscles seemed to be full, but in the end it was just the effect of Shinji's breathing. He was really old. Old man. I see your weakness. Now, I regret it. You have to die here with these little bugs. Lulu smiled cruelly, hooked his fingers lightly, and dozens of meteor hammers whistled and smashed towards Mr. Senmu. Ahem, I will fight to the last moment for the sake of Mori's reputation. The old face of Mr. Mori was full of determination. Die, swish. The eyes of the windless suddenly blurred, and a lightning-like black shadow suddenly pounced on its face, followed by a sharp pain. It was precisely because of this interruption that the meteor hammer that was originally smashed at Mr. Mori lost control and was easily avoided by Mr. Mori. When the windless was frantically pulling off the black shadow on his face, a small Shiba Inu with shiny fur bared its teeth and howled at it. The face of the windless was full of wounds and saliva from Enji's bite. Where did this beast come from? The furious windless threw Enji to the ground, and a heavy meteor hammer smashed at Enji, but the little Shiba Inu Enji had already turned into a demon. His eyes were bloodshot, and he was as fast as lightning. He easily dodged the attack and quickly went behind windless. Before windless could react, a blue sun blade stabbed directly at its back. Ping. The harsh sound of steel clashing, a ghost hand firmly grasped the blue sun blade. Windless had a ferocious expression, baring his fangs at the figure who attacked him. The hand holding the handle of the sun blade also had sharp black claws, bloodshot eyes, and fangs showing at the corners of his lips. The one who attacked him was actually a ghost. Shinichi held the Nichiren sword with all his strength. Using all his strength, veins popped out on his forehead, but the Nichiren sword in his hand was as if it was stuck in a boulder and didn't move at all. You are a ghost too. How dare you hold the Nichiren sword? What do you want to do? Windless roared, exerting force with his arm, and directly swung Shinichi and the Nichiren sword away. Bang! Shinichi's body directly hit a tree as thick as a bowl, and fell to the ground in embarrassment, but the special physique of ghosts made Shinichi stand up again quickly as if nothing had happened, grabbed the Nichiren sword, and looked at Windless. At this time, Windless was awkwardly pulling off Enji, who was entangled with it, and with a click, it tore Enji's small body apart and threw it away. In the short moment of the fight, Shinichi also saw the words in the eyes of the wheel. According to the information he had learned from the evil ghost Karasuma before, the bearded ghost in front of him was obviously one of the legendary 12 demon moons, and it was also the existence that countless evil ghosts longed to become. The 12 demon moons are indeed very strong. Their strength, speed, and reaction are far beyond my reach. I am not its opponent. Shinichi realized the gap between himself and the wheel in a few seconds, and it was not an ordinary gap, but even so, Shinichi did not turn around and run away. He just fled in embarrassment when facing the 12 demon moons. Then, would he still be able to take revenge on the guy named Muzan? Moreover, Shinichi did not think that he could successfully escape from the hands of the lower-ranked demon in front of him. In this way, the two demons with different strengths confronted each other. With golden eyes, Lulu glared at Shinichi, who was holding a knife in front of him. You actually attacked the superior with the knife of the Demon Slayer Core. You little devil, do you know what you are doing? Today, I will wipe out you for that, master. Blood Demon Jutsu Axle. Lulu raised one hand, and the ground under Shinichi's feet suddenly cracked into several large cracks, and several black shadows rushed towards Shinichi's face. Blood Demon Jutsu, Blood Rage. Shinichi did not dare to be careless. Despite the fatigue on his body, he burst out the Blood Demon technique again. The boiling blood instantly stimulated every blood vessel and every muscle in Shinichi's body, and the temperature of the skin surface rose sharply. Boom. Smoke and dust filled the air. Shinichi, who relied on Blood Rage to greatly improve his physical strength, narrowly avoided Lulu's attack. As the smoke and dust dissipated, he also saw clearly what had just attacked him. Several stone pillars as big as millstones were slowly rotating in the deep pit created. The first strike failed, and the windlass could not hold back. The wooden gear beside him made a clacking sound, and cracks appeared on the gear, and finally broke into a pile of fragments. As the wooden gear broke, the ground under the windlass also trembled. Swish. 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 Thin hemp ropes suddenly broke out of the ground, spreading towards the windlass like a snake and quickly wrapped around its limbs and joints. In the blink of an eye, the hemp ropes wrapped around the windlass to form a set of hemp rope armor. Blood Demon Art Rope Armor. Buzz. The invisible air wave spread out with the windlass as the center. Feeling the boiling blood in his body, Shinichi's chest rose and fell, and his hands holding the knife trembled slightly under the pressure of the windlass's momentum. It was not fear, but the class gap from the evil demon bloodline. Swish. Shinichi was the first one who couldn't help but take action. He didn't have any skills at all, and he couldn't imitate the moves of the two demon-slaying swordsmen. He held the Nichiren sword purely because it could cause damage to demons and kill them. So Shinichi's attack method was also very direct. He swung the long sword and chopped it straight towards the windlass. Chapter 15. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ping. The ear-piercing sound of metal clashing rang out in the forest, and Shinichi's pupils shrank. A pea-sized gap appeared on the sharp blade of the Sunwell sword, while the rope armor on the arm of the windlass only showed a faint mark. Windlass smiled cruelly, and before Shinichi could react, he stretched out his big hand and directly grabbed the blade of the Sunwell sword, and pulled it back with force. Unexpectedly, Shinichi was dragged directly in front of Windlass. At the critical moment, Shinichi decisively let go of the Sunwell sword, bent his fingers, and the black claws on his nails suddenly grew, and 5 claw lights rushed directly to the face of Windlass. Clang. There is no doubt that Shinichi's attack was easily blocked by Windlass again. Relying on the strong rope armor on his body, Windlass could basically ignore Shinichi's attack, but Shinichi had to withstand the violent attack from Windlass. The move of the Windlass is also very simple, which is a big and powerful fist and foot attack. Although the speed is not fast, the power is extremely terrifying. Shinichi has to dodge its attack in a panic. But in addition to the Windlass, there are several flexible and terrifying strangling ropes and meteor hammers around Shinichi. Suddenly. Puff. Shinichi was not careful, and a hemp rope pierced his thigh, causing his movement to stagnate. Crack. A crisp bone fracture sounded, and the hot blood flowed past Shinichi's eyes. He widened his eyes, and blood vessels popped up on his face. Looking down, the thick arm of the Windlass pierced Shinichi's chest at this time. Subconsciously, Shinichi raised his hands and grabbed the arm of the Windlass tightly, making it impossible for the Windlass to pull out his arm for a while. Don't be afraid of death, tell me, what made you do such a bold act? Seeing that Shinichi was still struggling, the windlass was also interested and asked casually. Hot blood flowed out of Shinichi's mouth along the trachea, staining his fangs red. Hearing what the windlass said, Shinichi barely raised his head and said with a ferocious smile, "For revenge, to kill all of you evil ghosts without leaving a single one alive. Including that Muzan." The moment he heard that name, the golden pupils of the windlass instantly shrank, and a sense of extreme fear surged in his heart. The strength in his hands also unconsciously increased. Crack! Blood rained down, and most of Shinichi's chest was directly torn apart by the windlass. "How dare you? How dare you? How dare you call that adult's name in front of me? You are so brave." The windlass tone suddenly became hurried. The whole ghost looked shocked and angry, and looked very angry. At the same time, it was also shocked that in addition to the 12 demon moons, there were actually ghosts who could call that adult's name directly without being cursed. "Go to hell." Winderla no longer hesitated, and rushed towards Shinichi, who was twitching on the ground like a cannonball, with the demon holding the Nichiren sword that Shinichi was forced to let go. Ah! Bang! The little Shiba Inu Enji, who had just recovered his body with the ability of demonization, hit Winderla with all his strength and successfully knocked him away halfway, but in an instant, Enji was chopped into two by the furious Winderla with a sword, but before Winderla could catch his breath, a green blade had already rushed behind him. Forest breathing, third form, thorn. Puff! The sharp Nichiren sword actually penetrated Winderla's indestructible rope armor directly. Ah! You damn bugs! Are you done yet? Get out of my way! Winderla roared, swung the Nichiren sword and chopped it back. Old Man Marimu had been accumulating strength for a long time, so he would not easily let go of this rare opportunity to attack. He ignored the long sword that was splitting him head-on, and instead, he held the Sun-Will sword with more force. A turquoise light shone in his eyes, and a unique breath of life condensed on Old Man Marimu's body. Breath of the Forest, Type 2 Willow of Vitality. Old Man Marimu shouted in a low voice, and the blade of the Sun-Will sword that stabbed into the body of the windlass shone with a dazzling turquoise light. Puff! The windlass slashed and the Sun-Will sword deeply cut into Old Man Marimu's shoulder, and blood flowed like a stream, but Old Man Marimu did not waver at all, and the turquoise Sun-Will sword in his hand shone more and more dazzlingly. In a blink of an eye, green willow branches actually emerged from the wound that the windlass was stabbed with. At the same time, the windlass also felt that its own power suddenly began to lose strangely. What the hell? Old man! Get out of my way! In fear, Lulu kicked at the chest of Mr. Mori with all his strength. Mr. Mori, who was hit hard, had to let go of the Sun-Will sword and flew backwards to the ground. What's wrong with these branches? Lulu hurriedly pulled out the Sun-Will sword that pierced his body, but the willow branches that emerged from his flesh and blood became more and more numerous and dense. Even if Lulu tried his best to pull them out, he couldn't stop them. Lulu was very shocked because those branches seemed to be constantly absorbing his strength and even curbing his body's ability to repair. The wounds stabbed by the Sun-Will sword were slow to heal. Can't recover. Under the tension, a drop of cold sweat appeared on the forehead of the windlass. It raised its head. At this time, the bright moon above its head had begun to set in the west. It would be dawn soon. Keisu. I can't get entangled with these insects. I have to go. Get out of here. As soon as he said it, the windlass covered the wound that was still sprouting branches and turned around and ran. With the strong physique of the waning ghost moon, it could easily jump more than 10 meters in one step, but the windlass had just run a few dozen meters away when it was startled by the whistling sound of breaking through the air from behind. Although it reacted in time, its movements were more than several times slower because of the restraint of the wound willow branches. Puff. Caw. Cough cough. A large mouthful of blood suddenly spurted out of the windlass mouth, and a sharp Sun-Will sword pierced through his neck. The violently thrown Sun-Will sword pierced through the windlass, and its power remained undiminished, nailing the windlass's entire body to a thick old tree. At the same time, Shinichi, who was covered in blood, bent his body, and his body still maintained the throwing posture. Panting, Shinichi gasped, barely raised his head, his eyes were bloodshot, and his clothes had just been torn apart by the windlass. At this time, it was clear that Shinichi's broken chest was constantly squirming with flesh granulations, and even his internal organs were clearly visible. "You, this, bastard! What did you do to my, Enji?" Because his entire chest was torn apart, Shinichi's angry roar was like the hoarse sound of a broken hair dryer, and blood foam was still emitting, but it was also this appearance that made Shinichi look like he had just returned from hell. Not far from Shinichi, the little Shiba Inu Enji was breathing weakly, and the life energy of the body cut by the Nichiren sword was becoming weaker and weaker. Since he inexplicably turned from a human into an evil ghost, Shinichi's spiritual sustenance was almost only revenge. Besides, Enji was the only companion left, but now, the throat of the wind will made a cracking sound. It grabbed the Nichiren sword that pierced its throat with both hands, slowly exerted force, and pulled out the blood-soaked Nichiren sword bit by bit. Its golden eyes stared at the figure dozens of meters away, and it deeply imprinted the appearance of this traitorous ghost into its mind. Boom. "Stop!" Shinichi roared with extreme anger. The wind will ran away again. Chapter 16. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I'm not afraid. It's just that there's no need to waste time on a few weak bugs and a traitorous little devil. The purpose of becoming one of the 12 demon moons is not to fight these bugs. I want to become stronger. To eat more people. To get more appreciation from Master Muzan. There's no need to waste time here. I have to leave. Windlass thought to himself, and then chose to leave here quickly, but as soon as Windlass turned around, a violent hurricane suddenly rose on its side. Breath of the wind, one type, dust whirlwind slash. Crack. Unprepared, Windlass was pierced through the body again by a slash from top to bottom. He gritted his teeth, and the wind breath he launched with overdrawn strength made his whole body suffer from the pain of thousands of cuts. But thinking of the sacrifice of his companions and his family members who died because of the evil spirits, Hine's eyes were bloodshot, and he opened his mouth and roared silently. The sudden surge of power in his body even made the Windlass unable to break free for a while. Damn human! You are looking for death. Let go! The Windlass roared in embarrassment. At the same time, the willow branches growing on its wounds had all withered, and the Windlass's wounds were recovering at a very fast speed visible to the naked eye, but facing the roar of the Windlass, Hinei did not waver or fear at all. The hands holding the knife used up all their strength, and they were deadly. Several hemp ropes suddenly rushed out from the ground under his feet, piercing Hinei's body fiercely, but Hinei still did not let go. Ruri was really anxious. Damn Demon Slayer Core. Go to hell. Before Ruri finished his roar, the furious Shinichi rushed in front of him. Blood Demon Art, Blood Rage, 2nd degree. Boom. Visible hot red air waves surged around Shinichi's body, and his originally fair skin was already red. On the exposed skin, blood vessels burst out. Due to the extremely high temperature, those blood vessels all exuded orange-red like magma. At a glance, it seemed that Shinichi had more flame patterns on his body. His eyes were completely occupied by scarlet red, and Shinichi roared wildly and swung his fists. The speed was so fast that only afterimages could be seen. Bang! 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 Ruri was trapped in the river and passively took all of Shinichi's punches. Ah! With the last roar, bang! A hot fist completely smashed the rope armor on Ruri's chest. Asshole! Shinichi's fist smashed into the chest of the wind wheel in the eyes of horror. Blood Demon Art, Life Absorption. The slender branches that emerged from Shinichi's palm instantly grew like a venomous snake in the body of the wind wheel, and a powerful suction force instantly began to devour the vitality of the wind wheel. No! No! It shouldn't be like this. How could I be hurt by you bugs? I am the lower string. The 4th lower string, wind wheel. These words. Let's talk about it in hell. Forest breathing 1 type iron birch slash. The green blade light flashed across the neck of the wind will like a startled wild goose. No. Snap. Boom. A head full of unwillingness fell down together with a thick old tree. Old man Morimo half bent his body in a bow step, the Nichiren sword in his hand was stained with blood, and he maintained the posture of drawing the sword. However, a breeze blew, and a large mouthful of blood spurted out uncontrollably. In an instant, the originally strong body of old man Morimo quickly shrank down, and in the blink of an eye, old man Morimo became a little old man in his twilight years. Plop, Kawachi could no longer hold on, his hands slipped powerlessly from the handle of the Nichiren sword, and the whole person knelt directly on the ground. The scene in front of him kept blurring, and a sharp buzzing sound rang in his ears. The original pain in his body also disappeared, and there was only a little numbness. Kawachi was a little dazed. Was he going to die? However, it seemed that the lower demon was also killed, right? Ah, it's great, everyone didn't sacrifice in vain, Dad, Mom, Jiro, I did a good job, right? In a trance, Kawachi seemed to see his family members smiling at him gently in the dazzling light. With the corners of his mouth raised, Kawachi slowly lowered his head. The tattered Haori behind him was slowly blown by the breeze, revealing the blood-stained word under the Haori. On the other side, Shinichi staggered and pulled his fist out of the windless chest. He had forced the second blood burst, and his body had reached a limit. If he had not just absorbed a lot of vitality from the windlass, Shinichi would have fallen down because he could not bear the power of the blood burst. In a daze, Shinichi also saw a person's life. It was the end of the Edo period, when the shogunate regime was aging. In an ordinary merchant family in Chiyoda Castle, more than a dozen fully armed samurai threatened the merchant family with long swords, making them the merchant's family handed over all the tea garden deeds. Even though the merchant begged hard, the warriors were not moved at all. After beating the merchant, they forcibly took away the merchant's ancestral 100-acre tea garden. The merchant, whose entire property was taken away by the warriors, did not have the courage to resist. Instead, he took out all his anger on his wife, who also came from a samurai family. In a drunken rage at night, he picked up the tool for fetching water from the well at home and smashed his wife to death. The irrational merchant did not even let go of the children who came when they heard the noise. Because the children's crying was too harsh, he strangled all his children with the well rope for fetching water. In the end, he sat among the corpses and laughed wantonly. It was also on that night that the pungent smell of blood attracted a man dressed in aristocratic gorgeous clothes. The merchant could not see his face clearly, but only knew that the man had a pair of scarlet eyes. That night, a restaurant in Chiyoda Castle was attacked by unknown forces, and dozens of people died tragically. The most miserable deaths were the more than 10 samurai who were having dinner at the highest level. Their bodies were twisted like twisted dough sticks, and their heads were smashed into fine meat paste like being smashed by a giant hammer. This is the life of Lulu, a despicable businessman. He resented those samurai, his wife, and his colleagues who watched him go bankrupt but did not help him, but he never thought that all this was caused by his greed. He greedily wanted to make more money when the rebellion broke out in the south, and he borrowed money everywhere for this. His virtuous wife couldn't bear her husband being rejected, so she returned to her home and asked her samurai father for help. In the end, the businessman borrowed a large sum of money from more than a dozen wealthy samurai families, but the ambitious businessman ended up losing all his money. All his tea and property were looted by the rebels, and he went bankrupt completely. The virtuous wife wept and went to her father for help again. With the full help of her father, she barely calmed down the anger of the samurai who wanted to chop the merchant into pieces. She only took away the merchant's tea fields as a price. However, the greedy merchant did not appreciate his father-in-law's kindness. Instead, he resented his father-in-law, thinking that his father-in-law had betrayed everything he had and allowed the samurai to rob his ancestral property. As a result, he also resented his wife. The windlass with only his head left was still shouting no. It shouldn't be like this. How could I? How could I be beheaded? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. I can't die. It's so hard to get to where I am today. It's not easy to become one of the 12 demon moons. I don't want to die, but as his neck gradually turned to ashes, the sound of the windlass's roar became smaller and smaller. Before he was on the verge of death, the memory of his previous life suddenly appeared clearly in front of him. Gradually, the windlass was stunned. He had forgotten everything. He only remembered that he had to keep living, climb up, and become a noble 12 demon moons. But the scenes in front of him. What have I done? Yumiko. No, a tear actually appeared in the corner of the windlass's eyes. A beast like me deserves to go to hell. After saying the last sentence, the windlass's head completely turned to ashes, the fourth of the lower strings, destruction. Chapter 17. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When the sinful life of Lulu came to an end in Shinichi's eyes were immediately shrouded in darkness, and his body was extremely weak due to overdrawn, plop. With a clear sound, Shinichi fell to the ground and lost consciousness. In the bloody and broken battlefield, only Mr. Moriki could barely move. After struggling for a while, Mr. Moriki stood up with difficulty with the support of the Nichiren sword, and walked towards the direction where Shinichi fell. Looking at Shinichi's fangs slightly exposed at the corners of his lips, Mr. Moriki's eyes were deep and silent. At this moment, a black feathered crow flapped its wings and landed gently on the ground. In front of it was Kawachi, who lowered his head and lost his breath. Looking up at the master who had lost his warmth, crystal tears overflowed from the corners of the crow's eyes. The crow who had been with Kawachi day and night had already regarded Kawachi as a relative and partner. He is a brave boy. Without him, we can't take down the lower string demon. This crow, can you pass on a message and request to the current lord on my behalf? Old man Marimu came to Hanoi at some point and said solemnly, as the moon completely set, the dawn gradually rose, and the sky was bright. Ga! Ga! The lower string 4 was destroyed. The lower string 4 was destroyed. A huge crow flapped its wings, shouting loudly, and flew into a large mansion. Under the eaves, the black-haired boy kneeling on the treading rice raised his head, gently put down the book in his hand, listened to the sound of the crow outside, and the thin boy stood up, walked out of the room, stretched out his hand, and a crow landed steadily on the boy's arm and began to repeat what he had just said. Lower moon 4. That's great. Killing one of the 12 moons will definitely give you more confidence. The black-haired boy said happily from the bottom of his heart. At the same time, a clear and melodious voice sounded behind the black-haired boy, "My lord, His Excellency the Water Pillar is waiting for your reception." The black-haired boy turned around with a smile, and looked at the beautiful young girl with smoky purple eyes. He was also his wife, and said softly, "Tianyin, don't call me so seriously. By the way, I just got the news that the swordsman successfully killed a lower moon demon." Really? That's really good news to cheer everyone up. Tianyin replied happily. Yes, but, there are also several very brave young swordsmen who lost their precious lives. The black-haired boy's expression became a little gloomy. However, the breath of the forest, which was once thought to have disappeared, has appeared again, and, there is also an incredible thing. Breath of the forest? Tianyin showed a puzzled expression. Obviously, she had never heard of this breathing method. Crack. A wooden stick was stepped on and broke with a crisp sound. In the dense forest, a figure as swift as fire was flying quickly. The speed of this figure was so fast that people could not see its appearance clearly. They could only vaguely see the flying cloak like a surging flame. As the sun gradually rose, the contemporary flame pillar Rengoku Makijiro became slightly anxious. As soon as he received the news from the crow, he rushed to Shirai Mountain frantically. As a flame pillar, he naturally knew the strength of the 12 Kazuki. Although he also believed in Kawachi and the others, after all, those young people were only low-level swordsmen and could not be the opponents of the 12 Kazuki. Although Rengoku Makijiro had tried his best to come here, even without counting the consumption, and used the breath of fire many times to speed up his journey, when he arrived at Shirai Mountain, the sun slowly rose. As soon as he stepped into Shirayama, Rengoku Makijiro caught the smell of blood in the air with his extremely keen perception. He determined a direction, pressed the sun will sword on his waist, and swish. The figure of the flame pillar disappeared directly on the spot. Ahem, I am really old. Even with the breath of the forest, I am no longer able to fight the 12 demon moons. However, fortunately, someone who can truly inherit the breath of the forest has appeared. The hunched old man Marimu stood up with difficulty and looked at Shinichi, who was lying on the ground unconscious. Ancestor, is all this the arrangement of fate? Old man Marimu sighed, but suddenly, the old man's face changed and he turned around abruptly. In the shadow of the bushes, a hideous figure let out a low roar, and in the darkness there was only a pair of eyes full of tyranny and hunger. This is a hungry evil ghost that has been lurking on Baijing Mountain. Before the windlass came, the disappearance of woodcutters and hunters on Baijing Mountain was caused by it. But after the windlass came, out of fear of the superior, this evil ghost can hide, but the strong smell of blood from the battle last night was too tempting for this hungry evil ghost, and the windlass suddenly disappeared, so the evil ghost could no longer bear it. Old man Marimu slowly clenched the sun-will sword in his hand, and his face became serious. Although his body was very weak now, if it was just an ordinary evil ghost, it would not be a big problem. Taking a deep breath, the unique forest breathing method began to operate in old man Marimu's body, and the evil ghost in the bushes could not hold back. It was about to dawn, and it was really hungry. With a ferocious mouth, the evil ghost's body immediately pounced on old man Marimu like an arrow. Old man Marimu quickly raised the sun-will sword, but before the first form of forest breathing was formed, an orange-red figure suddenly caught up with the evil ghost behind him, and the speed of that figure was even faster. Breathing of flame, type 2 rising flame. With a sharp shout, the sun blade covered with orange-red flames instantly rose at an incredible angle, without any resistance at all. The flying demon didn't even have time to react and was beheaded by a single blow. Snap! The broad hand easily sheathed the sun blade, and the demon was reduced to ashes. Rengoku Makijiro raised his head and looked at the old man Moriki wearing the old-fashioned uniform, and asked loudly, "Old man, where is the lower moon?" Looking at Rengoku Makijiro's outfit, the white cape with flowing fire patterns, the straight demon slayer corps uniform, the somewhat messy but unusually energetic golden hair, the ends of which were stained with bright red, the rough eyebrows and the face full of righteousness, plus the wide-open orange eyes, it is easy to be associated with an owl. You are the pillar of the demon slayer corps." Rengoku Makijiro grabbed the handle of the Nichiren sword and answered loudly, "Yes. I am the flame pillar of the demon slayer corps." Rengoku Makijiro, the crow with a red feather on its tail flapped its wings desperately, and white foam almost came out of the corners of its mouth. It finally caught up with its owner Rengoku Makijiro. Soon, Makijiro, who was holding the crow on his arm, understood everything. "Old man, it turns out that the lower moon 4 has been killed by you. It's amazing." Chapter 18. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On Shirayama, a line of black-clad figures were busy. They were wearing uniforms similar to those of the Demon Slayer Corps, but with a big hidden character written on the back, and white striped masks and hats on their faces. They were the hidden department of the Demon Slayer Corps, a department that was specifically responsible for handling the aftermath of the battle. Most of them were composed of members who had no swordsmanship talent, and many swordsmen who had lost their combat ability did not want to retire and took the initiative to join. The hidden department was mainly responsible for medical care and evacuation in the Demon Slayer Corps. Although the members of the hidden department had low combat effectiveness, they made outstanding contributions to hunting evil ghosts in their own way. Without the struggle of the hidden department members, the Demon Slayer Corps would not have been able to easily fight against powerful evil ghosts. Kawachi's body was carefully moved to a stretcher by the hidden department members, and the other sacrificed swordsmen were also carefully and respectfully collected by the hidden department members. There were also many innocent villagers who were brutally killed by the windlass, and they were also collected by the hidden department members. When a member of the hidden team passed by a stretcher covered with a black tarpaulin, he suddenly heard a faint breathing sound under the tarpaulin. With the blood oozing from the edge of the tarpaulin, the member of the hidden team immediately realized that there was a seriously injured person on the stretcher. Out of instinctive duty, the member of the hidden team immediately took out his medicine box to treat the injured person, but just as the member of the hidden team reached out to lift the tarpaulin, a skinny but powerful hand grabbed his wrist first. Old man, what are you doing? Please let go of your hand and let me treat this injured person. The member of the hidden team was puzzled. The one who grabbed the member of the hidden team was the old man Senmu, who was wrapped in some bandages. At this time, the old man Senmu was holding a weak little Shiba Inu in his hand, and his hand was faintly emitting a faint green light, but in the dazzling sunlight, the green light was not noticeable. This is my disciple, not a member of the Demon Slayer Corps. Please don't bother him. I have treated his injuries and he needs to rest now. The hidden team member was a little excited when he heard this and raised his arms to protest. Old man. We are not only serving the team members. It is also our duty to help other humans who are hurt by demons. Please don't say that. However, Mr. Mori did not refute, but just smiled and shook his head. The hidden team member wanted to say something, but a big hand behind him patted his shoulder. Young man of the hidden team, your help is needed there more. Let me talk to this old man. Seeing that it was the order of the flame pillar, the hidden team member had to leave here to help. Before leaving, he angrily glanced at the speechless Mr. Mori. Rengoku Makijuro put one hand on the handle of the Nichiren sword and walked to the side of Mr. Moriki. He first looked at the old uniform on Mr. Moriki, and then tried to start a conversation. Old man, were you also a swordsman of the Demon Slayer Corps? Old man Moriki looked down at his uniform, with a hint of reminiscence in his eyes, but finally shook his head with a wry smile. No, I was just a cowardly deserter. Killing a lower string. Old man, your record is enough to look down on most of the younger generations of the Demon Slayer Corps now. Old man Moriki just sighed with regret. Seeing the lonely look on Mr. Moriki's face, Makijuro said no more and turned the topic to the stretcher on the ground. Old man, the one on the stretcher is a demon, right? Swish. Makijuro clearly felt a flash of sharp momentum, and the hand of Mr. Moriki, who was originally stroking the little Shiba Inu in his arms, paused for a second. You are really a powerful swordsman with the name of the pillar, with a very keen perception. However, Lord Flame Pillar, why didn't you take action when you knew there was a demon under the stretcher? Makijuro's hand on the handle of the Sunwolf sword couldn't help but tighten half a point, but finally released the handle. I received the Lord's crow. Although it is unbelievable, the Lord agreed to your request and wished that the breath of the forest could be famous again. Hearing the word Lord, a picture flashed in Mr. Moriki's eyes, but it was small. The generous Lord in his memory might have died long ago, and the curse of the Ubuyashiki family. Although he didn't know which Ubuyashiki was the lord of the current Demon Slayer Corps, Mr. Moriki was not surprised that the Lord would agree to his request, because every lord of the Demon Slayer Corps was equally generous and great. Please rest assured. I, Moriki Mitsutomu, swear on my life that this child will inherit the breath of the forest and become a powerful swordsman. Makijuro did not answer. In fact, he was just following the orders of his lord. At the same time, he was probably the only one who knew about old man Moriki's request, train a demon to become a swordsman. It sounds like a joke. What kind of creature is a demon? Cruel, tyrannical, bloodthirsty, and cannibalistic, these are the nature of demons. In the eyes of all the demon slayers, chopping off their heads is the final fate of all demons. However, out of respect for the Lord, even though the Lord is only a teenager, and the information from the crow that confirmed that the demon helped the demon slayers kill the lower string, and the last inheritor of the forest breath, Mr. Moriki Mitsuyo, swore with his life, Makijuro acquiesced to this and was willing to keep this secret. In that case, old man, I look forward to a powerful swordsman rising in the Demon Slayer Corps in the future. However, the Lord asked me to ask you one last question. Killing a lower string is enough to get the title of pillar. Are you really unwilling to accept the title of pillar? Old man Morimo lowered his head, looked at the green Nichiren sword in his hand, and finally shook his head. No, I don't deserve the title of pillar. From the moment I abandoned my companions, I was just a shameful deserter. I understand, old man, we will meet again, it hurts. The head seemed to be split in two. In the chaos, Shinichi felt a sharp pain in his head, as if someone was chopping his head with an axe. Just as Shinichi was struggling, a green light suddenly appeared in front of him, dazzling and blinding. When the green light gradually faded, the back figure appeared in front of Shinichi again, wearing a turquoise haori, casually tied black hair, and a sheathed long sword hanging on a simple belt around his waist. However, this time, the back figure slowly turned around, and Shinichi also saw the man's face clearly. He had a very handsome face, and was very young, with a pair of emerald green eyes that were extremely bright. While Shinichi was looking at this man, the pair of emerald green eyes were also looking at him. Who are you? In the end, Shinichi couldn't hold back and asked loudly, but as soon as Shinichi finished speaking, cracks suddenly appeared on the man's face, and the handsome face was covered with cracks like porcelain that was about to break. The emerald green light in the two eyes suddenly extinguished, and in a moment, a scarlet light lit up from the pupil. Boom. It seemed that there was an invisible wave of air surging around the man. Is this violent blood? Chapter 19. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It was noon in Takanagawa village. On the road with few pedestrians, an old man with a hunched figure was walking slowly, pulling a cart covered with a black tarpaulin. The green haori that had experienced a great war was already quite tattered, but Mr. Morimu did not discard the haori. Instead, he carefully washed off the blood and traces of battle on the haori. After all, for him, the feelings carried by this haori were too deep and too important. Because he was pulling a cart, Mr. Morimu was not walking very fast. Many people took the initiative to greet Mr. Morimu along the way, not for anything else, but because half of the real estate in the entire Takanagawa village belonged to the old man's Morimu family. Even though he was the only one left in the Morimu family. Who would have thought that the old man who was wearing tattered clothes and pulling a cart would be the richest man in Takanagawa village? Crunch, crunch, crunch. The wooden wheels made a harsh sound of rotation with every step forward of Mr. Senmu. Soon, Mr. Senmu pulled the cart to a pharmacy and looked up at the plaque on the medicine jar. Butterfly Medicine House. In the living room, the owner of the medicine house, an elegant middle-aged pharmacist, was carefully mixing the medicine. After hearing the sound of the wheels outside the medicine house, the pharmacist seemed to remember something, and quickly put down the medicine in his hand, took out a large bag of already mixed medicinal materials from the medicine cabinet, and then hurried out. Mr. Senmu, it's you. Did you have a smooth trip? The pharmacist said to Mr. Senmu with a smile while carrying a large bag. Old man Mori also responded with a smile. I encountered some troubles on the way, but it was not serious. It was still smooth. It seems that Yao Xinjuan has already prepared what I want for me. Pharmacist Butterfly Yao Xian shook his head embarrassedly. This is not prepared by me, but Miss Rukawa asked me to prepare it before. Oh. Really? It's really hard for this child. Old man Mori took the big bag handed over by Butterfly Yao Xian with some emotion. The rich aroma of medicinal materials immediately penetrated into the nose, making people can't help but he was shocked. Yao Xinjuan is still as reliable as ever. You are complimented. Just as the two were talking, a kimono woman carrying a basket of vegetables came over from the street behind. Is it Mr. Mori? You are back. Old man Mori turned around. It turned out to be Yuji. Are you back from buying vegetables? Hudy Yao Xian's wife Yuji first bowed to old man Morimu, and then enthusiastically invited old man Morimu to have lunch together, but old man Morimu naturally declined. Behind Yuji were two figures, one big and one small, both wearing kimonos with floral patterns. The two girls inherited the genes of their parents' beauty and looked very cute and beautiful. After not seeing you for such a long time, Kane has become more obedient and sensible, and Shinobu has grown taller. Kane and Shinobu Kuji heard that they were praised by their elders, so they should naturally return the favor. However, compared with her sister Kane's gentleness, Shinobu Kuji, who is only 8 years old this year, is obviously a little lively and impulsive. After thanking Grandpa Mori, Shinobu's big violet eyes curiously looked at the cart pulled by Grandpa Mori. while Grandpa Mori and the Yaoshin couple were talking, Shinobu came to the side of the cart, and soon Shinobu found that the tarpaulin covering the cart was slightly undulating somewhere, as if there was something underneath. Children are very curious. In order to explore what was under the tarpaulin, Shinobu stretched out her little hand without thinking and wanted to uncover the tarpaulin. Shinobu's actions were naturally seen by Grandpa Mori throughout the whole process, but for some reason, Grandpa Mori did not stop her. Instead, he continued to talk to the Yaoshin couple about the interesting things that happened recently in Takanagawa village. "What's in here?" Curious, Xiaonin muttered as she pinched the corner of the tarpaulin. Suddenly, in a flash, a large mass of something suddenly rose from the tarpaulin, suddenly drilled out of the tarpaulin, opened its mouth and barked at Xiaonin. "Ah! Ah ah! Ah!" Xiaonin was frightened by the sudden shock and sat on the ground, and several people who were talking nearby were also startled. Xiaonin. Kane was the first to react, and hurried to help Xiaonin, who was about to cry on the ground, and the others realized what happened later. On the cart, a black and white Shiba Inu with smooth hair and bright eyes was curling its tail and barking at Xiaonin. Butterfly Yaoshin breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that something had suddenly happened. It turned out to be a little Shiba Inu. However, he still severely criticized his little daughter. It was very bad behavior to rummage through other people's things casually. She should apologize to Grandpa Moriki. And Mr. Senmu would naturally not. In fact, he deliberately didn't remind her just now, just to scare this impetuous little girl. After all, he often visited Butterfly Medicine House and knew that Xiaonin was different from her sister Kane. She was a lively child, but sometimes she would be naughty. After saying goodbye to Butterfly Medicine Nobunaga's family, Mr. Mori continued to drag the cart and walked along the road. The little Shiba Inu Enji followed behind him with his tail wagging. He turned at 2 intersections and then passed through a dense bamboo forest. Mr. Mori returned home. Deep in the bamboo forest, an ancient house was quietly located. 2 large lanterns were hung high beside the gate of the house, and outside the gate, a figure had been waiting for a long time. The green kimono was dotted with bamboo leaf patterns, and the brown hair was simply tied into a bun with 2 bamboo hairpins. Although the delicate face was childish, the expression was mature and steady, which was inconsistent with the girl's age. "Mr. Mitsuyo, you are back. Thank you for your hard work." The girl bowed meticulously to Mr. Moriki. Mr. Moriki looked helpless. "China, I told you not to be so serious. During this period, the mansion has been taken care of by you. You have also worked hard." China, an orphan picked up by Mr. Moriki 5 years ago, is only 14 years old this year, but now she is in charge of the entire Moriki family's industry. In the past 5 years, she has successfully turned the Moriki family, which only had Mr. Moriki left, into a famous wealthy family in the entire Takanagawa village and even in Katatashima County. In the huge Moriki mansion, in addition to China, there are only a few servants hired to help clean and cook. In fact, before China, Rukawa, took over the Moriki family industry, there were only Mr. Moriki and her in the entire Moriki mansion. After declining the servants' help in pulling the cart, Mr. Morimu personally pulled the cart into the mansion. Rukawa Chinana led the way with a small lantern in front, but she, who was always calm, looked back from time to time at the cute little Shiba Inu. Well, maybe girls can't resist this kind of cute furry animal. The 2 people and the dog avoided other servants and soon came to a room that had been prepared. After opening the door and entering, they were immediately wrapped in a large area of dense darkness. The only source of light was the lantern in Rukawa Chinana's hand. He pressed a switch in the room without panic, and the darkness in front of him was instantly dispelled. Above his head, the dazzling light bulb emitted an orange-red light, illuminating the entire room clearly. At this time, Mr. Morimu also turned around and looked at the tarpaulin covering the cart. The little Shiba Inu Enji also excitedly howled under the tarpaulin. Its owner was about to wake up, give up the idea. The new character is not the heroine.